Hey everybody, Dr. Nick here on Feel Good Friday. Today we're talking about 2 reasons why you may have hip pain during a deep squat, and also simple ways to fix them. As always, it's important to go see a qualified healthcare practitioner if you have any pain. Let's get into it. The first reason you may have hip pain in a deep squat is the position of your pelvis. So the hip joint is a ball and socket joint, and it can move in 2 ways. First, the leg bone can move on the socket, but also the socket can move on the leg bone. That movement of the socket comes from your spine and your pelvis. So the position of your pelvis plays a big role in the function and range of motion of your hip. If you arch your back and go into an anterior pelvic tilt, you're going into some hip flexion just by moving your pelvis. If you go into a posterior pelvic tilt, you're going into hip extension just by moving the pelvis. So by me arching my back, I'm getting hip flexion. By me rounding my back, I'm getting hip extension. Now that's fine and that's normal, but you have to keep that in mind if you're having hip pain at the bottom of your squat. If you're arching hard during a squat, that's going to prematurely give you hip flexion before you even go into your squat. And as you descend into your squat and your femur moves up into hip flexion, that anterior pelvic tilt and that hard arch of the spine and pelvis is going to cause you to reach your end range hip flexion prematurely. What happens is when you reach that end range of hip flexion, you put yourself at risk for impingement. You only have so much room to move in the socket before you start pinching some things. So if you bring your leg all the way up like this, there's a point where the ball is going to meet the socket. There's only so much room it can go. And if you arch your back hard during a squat or a deadlift, you're going to get to that point where the ball touches the socket sooner. So how do we fix this? By controlling the pelvis. So rather than going into a hard arch, try to go into a more neutral pelvic position. We don't want to round the back, but we want to get out of that hard arch, stay in extension, but just come a little bit more into neutral. A way to work on this is starting with, rather than a back squat, maybe a front squat, or a goblet squat, where the load is in front of your body. That's going to help you keep that more neutral spine and prevent that hard arch. If you're still having a hard time finding that neutral spine and maintaining it during those squat variations, regress more and start on the floor. Start doing a posterior pelvic tilt on the floor until you get a feel for that, and then work up to those different squat variations. The second reason you may be having hip pain at the bottom of your squat is restricted hip external rotation. So in order for our hip to move smoothly and clear its full range of motion, there needs to be some external rotation at the hip. If we're in internal rotation, as we come up into hip flexion, you're going to cause that ball to pinch that socket as it's going up. So we need to open up that space and allow the ball to move smoothly with adequate external rotation. A simple way to do this is add a band around your knees during your squat. What this is going to do is it's going to help force you into some abduction and external rotation when you go down into your squat. And it's going to prevent this internal rotation and adduction from happening. So it's going to open up the space so it allows that ball to smoothly move in that socket. You can also do some soft tissue work on the adductors, like I'm showing in this stretch here. So you can stretch those adductors or do some quick foam rolling right before you're getting into your squat, and that may just help getting that external rotation necessary for that ball to move smoothly in that socket. Again, these are just two things that can help with this pain, but you have to see a qualified healthcare practitioner to rule out something serious. Examples like this are the reasons why I always preach you have to see a qualified healthcare practitioner. Many healthcare practitioners out there will examine someone with hip pain, and rather than assess their technique, they look at the minutiae. What I mean by that is they look at specific issues that may be causing that pain. So whether this muscle is tight or this muscle is weak, you may have hip pain when you squat, and you may have a labral tear, but you could have had that labral tear your whole life and just never have known it. So is the labral tear causing your hip pain? Maybe not. Maybe it's a simple adjustment of your pelvis or some extra focus on hip abduction and external rotation when you're down in your squat. So things like massage, heat, ice, acupuncture, ultrasound, electric stim, even foam rollers and different other gadgets you can buy, they do not get at the root of the problem most of the time. They just treat the symptoms. This is like spending time trying to get the best bucket to catch water in a leak. You can have the biggest, baddest bucket out there, but no matter what, that leak is still going to come. You owe it to yourself to find someone that's going to give you a proper assessment and help you reach your goals. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Harry! Here, buddy!